How is social power, authority, or social roles in a hierarchy expressed in your culture?
Okay, so hierarchy is it's a big thing. So we trust the people in power, and by we I mean the people. To the point where there are more and more people, more and more younger generation that understand what it's about. They understand about corruption. They see it. They fight against bribery, and but to this day, that older generation that always believed in that power in our government, they still you know uh, trust our president, and they trust that everything he says and promises will happen. So we had many discussions with my mom. To this day, I don't even touch the subject from my aunt, who is very intelligent. She is an engineer by degree, very well spoken woman, and stays on top. And you would think that they can see the reality, they can see what's happening, they have many examples in front of them, but they will continue to believe and expect what president promises. And but if you even think about it, the way our government works, I mean, our president has been in power. This is the whole reason why they do not allow it in most countries, but he's been in power for what, 20 years, over 20 years. I mean, he stepped aside, but he had his own selection who reported to him anyway during his presidency, but there was a break. But really, for decades, he's been in power. So this is in any country, it will backfire. It will eventually, it's just turn into monarchy. And I mean, and this is just uh, expected to happen. So I don't know why they allow it, but regardless, they trust the government. They trust uh, their plans and uh, their promises and all that. And that's why there's still so many Russians that will go and fight for Russia, and they go despite of all the tremendous loss. Um, it is for Russia too, not just Ukraine, but they will continue, and that's also because of the patriotism. I mean, they are patriots, a lot of those people of their country. But so that's the government, the power, social roles, and again, it's changing, but social placement in society is a big thing still in Russia. We see, what's the word I had in my, your title, your position in society, it not only it's brings the pride and to the person. This is also your placement in the social environment.
Like the regime?
Well, not quite, but um, just let me. The example is in Russia, the connections mean more than you your worth, or your ability, or your wealth. It's the connections. Doesn't matter how much money you have, it's the connections you have. And that's again, it's social, it's right, social roles in it, in our culture. um, it's part of it is bribery too. So you and that's how you create those connections. You bribe the right people. You include them in events. You feed them. You provide for them, or you make I mean, same as bribe. You give gifts because you will ask for something in return eventually. So you create it without even knowing if you ever will need it, but it's good to have that connection. That will help you with the job, that will help you with your own social placement, that will help you with many different things, down to where you're going to live and what, um, the region you're going to uh, settle in. So, but and it's in us that to this day, even though a lot of bribery, I mean, all of the bribery is against the law now. It's actually literally written in the law, and they imprison people for that. But people just can't let go it. And I know that even for me, like I personally have that example of certain service actually was a government service, and especially with government. I mean, private sector, no questions. You pay for what and you buy services, just like it works here. You go and you pay for the services, and services are provided. This is a government, and our a lot of services and benefits are government funded services and benefits. You cannot buy it. So in a lot of it is things that you can't be without. I mean, it can be any document or notary service, right? Or anything where you can't just hire a person and you pay them, and they, we can call a notary service here and make a fee, and of course they have laws and rules, and they will take care of your business. No. So there's still a huge part of merchandise and services that are government funded, and it's hard to get to deal with the government there. I mean, it's the timing, the social roles, big part. I mean, if you don't know someone that knows someone that knows that person, you may never get what you need. So you will eventually, but I've witnessed all that with my mom's social services, because social service is free service and it's a government. You can find a private, which we did. We had no problem. We hired a private agency that's taking care, but there is certain social services that have to be present, and that's, you deal with the government. And that took all my time, and that took all my effort. And when it came to the notary service, they played everything by the rule. But anyway, it was hard to get the piece of paper that would get us access to services there. Literally, it's just a simple piece of paper. They could come and see what we're dealing with. I mean, and it's just a common sense to give it to you, but we had to go through all of this red tape to get there. That's still a lot of this there. And when finally everything was done, and I wanted to offer a payment, even though it's a free service, there are fees that are documented, but outside of those fees, I was just so grateful, and I wasn't even giving it as a bribe because it was all done. It was, but it's so much in me that we have to either back then bribe people or give gratitude. And so when I offered money to the person was so afraid of it, because they're now, it's told by law. I mean, it's against the law, and they don't want to get in trouble, and they do get caught, and cameras can be everywhere. And so she was frightened by this, and I was just taking it back, because it was absolutely normal thing back then, except you did it before. Very good, funny story. When we got married in Russia, so that we could have our family attend. So in there to get marriage license. So when we went to the department, that's all they do, and we it's not a big deal. Absolutely, you come and you write this request and complete this form, and it all goes through the process. Maybe you will wait a little bit, but it happened. So I was with Mark, so they knew it's a foreigner. So foreigner means or actually not a foreigner, it's American. So right away, it's dollar sign is in front of them, so they knew this is like. So all of a sudden, when we're meeting not with the usual regular clerk. All of a sudden, we need to see the director of this department. And when we met with the director, Mark was with me and I had to translate. So this was a long process and she was unavailable. So we were trying to book something and it was, this takes long, this unavailable, that's not the right stamp. We had to, stamp is big, and talking about, hierarchy you're talking about, yeah, everything, um, there's like the whole the bureaucracy is big. So we didn't have the right stamp, it wasn't notarized correctly, there were so many obstacles that we knew that it's just she's trying to get a bribe. So this is out in the open. I mean, she's
trying to
just
get
not.
money.
So it took Mark to just, of course, he made it sound like we're just grateful for your time. We'll get you all the right stamps, and he just gave her $100 bill. Say, we're just so grateful for your time. She took that, she closed everything. She said, I will personally make you marriage official, so I'll take care of it, which she was never there when we were, we're big married. So
Yeah.
we to this day, we laugh about it, but it was all done in a matter of seconds. But she was dragging, and I've faced so many similar situations where they will drag their feet, they will, it's bureaucracy and bribery. This is the social, yeah. Now, if you know someone, all you do is make a phone call and they just tell you, come and get it, because that person owes that person and that person knows. So it's everyone is connected. And then of course, if they come to me for something I have access to, so I have to make that happen.
Yeah.
So that's social. And another part, I don't know if it's on this question or not, but it's it's social roles. We respect, we even address elderly people differently. Well, here it's, you can call me Natasha, Cooper can call you Valerie, but in Russia, you address older person with a middle name. So that's respectful way of addressing. That's and there is like disrespect, and also last question was something that has to do with that too. So it's very disrespectful. It's shame to address it. You offer your seat in public transportation to an older person or a pregnant woman, and how we how we're seen in public. The same way I was shocked when I saw people wearing pajamas to the store. Well, now it's part of fashion too. I mean, you just make it out of silk and it's actually an outfit. I mean, but you can go to the store. I can go like this to the store, which is not going to look down upon. But this is no. You enter public. You dress appropriately. You cannot, and that's where shame comes in too. Like you may not care about it, but everyone will judge you around you. So this is, certain things that are expected certain way. This is how it should be, and that's how it's viewed. So addressing the elderly people, and I don't know what else would be a social role. But again, hierarchy is still present in Russia, and it's everyone has its um, place
As there,
in society and its role, and we all, so it's, I went, and it's, even though I lived in that culture and I know it all, it still shocks me. I think it's because I lived here long enough, for 25 years. It's when I went back, even though again things change, there's more services, mentality is changing, but they just can't let go of that. You need me. I am, I went to the bank, we had to pay utilities. They didn't have everything online, and we just gave up on idea of teaching my aunt who is 80. So we went, you have to go to the bank to pay your utilities. And we walk in, even though I told my sister, look, this is new. They have a person who actually meets you at the door, and they're like, well, maybe because they guide you through, because there are a lot of older people. Oh, you can use this machine to do that. They now have machines to do, which we eventually got there. But there was certain utility that we had to actually go and see the clerk at the counter. So, but that was new, that they had someone like assistant asking, like handling the crowd, even though there weren't that many people. But when we got to, and let me tell you, so four windows, and we were sitting waiting because they have to call you. They have the ticketing system and all that, and I'm thinking, oh, that's new, not like in line like we used to. Who's next? The ticketing. That nobody's at the counter. That is not changing. They're sitting there. So you're thinking, why? It was norm for me before, but because I'm coming now from a different culture, this is almost like new, because it agitates me. Like I can't, and because nothing makes sense, and I'm thinking, okay, so what's holding you up? But they're in power. They know that you need them, and you can't storm out because you have to pay that bill. You cannot come close, which we eventually did, but with a lot of pride they said, what is your number? When you see that number, which we knew the system, but our point was, well, you're not doing anything. I don't even see you working. This is using even a little bit of power that they have. And when we finally came, it was like, how can I be bigger than I am? So the questions, the obstacles that they create. What day is it? I need a copy. Well, can't you make a copy? That's not my job to make a copy. So now we have to go to a copy service next door, make a copy, and then come back and go through the same ticketing system. So they use that social, I think this is exactly what it is. It's your social role, or your role in the society, your social power. This is what, even though you're a clerk, I can do your job without any education. Just show me what to sign and what form they need to complete. But reality is they're behind the counter.
Yeah.
And that's what I dealt living here. When I had to renew my passport, I had to go to Washington, D.C. to deal with Russian consul, and it was scary because I thought, okay, they're not going to renew it. And I provided all of the paperwork and all of the stamps that they still require and they still need. And there was something because of misspelled name, because some spelled Natalia with a Y, some spelled Natalia with an I. There were two pieces of paper that didn't match, even though it's everything the same. My marriage certificate was translated with notarized, everything. No, it wasn't translated because it was in Russia. I got married in Russia. Everything was in their language. And he's still at the end of it, where I was almost with tears, because they called the consul to come and look at that discrepancy, and he was looking at me, and I'll never forget. And he addressed me with its just respectful way, even though I'm not older than him. But that's how, when you don't know, when you're not friends with people. So by my first and middle name, and he said, which is Natalia Viktorovna, and he said, Natalia Viktorovna, are you trying to confuse Russian government? Like literally, they will think to that point because they wrote my name, because one letter in my name was mixed up. So they thought that I would go through all that to I don't know, I don't know, get away with something, like almost. But it's the manner, this was very different than here, not everywhere, but they meet you with a smile. Okay, we'll take care of this. Oh, this maybe, but let me, you try to, even at the agency where I work, we have a main rule: find a way to do it than to deny it. Find a way to accept it, because there's a way around it, not against the law, not breaking the rules, but how you can help person. Then it seems like what they did in Russian government, that find a way, find an obstacle to prevent this, because now they can't even take a bribe. So how can I make it difficult for you? When before it was just like, just pay the bribe and it will go away. But now they can't do that, but they still want to be important. And so even Washington, D.C., I mean, just because it was a Russian embassy, even on the little territory that they had in another country, they still want, especially in Washington, D.C., there's a line of people, and they know their family depends on it, their travel depends on it, everything. This little document, I can't travel without it. Because guess what? Even with my American citizenship, I have an American passport, but to enter Russia, I have to have Russian passport because I was born in Russia. So you see, that's their power. So I can't travel and see my mom unless I have a renewed Russian passport. And it was an ordeal. So I dealt with it even while in this country, because it's a Russian, branch. It's a Russian government inside another country. So it's, to this day, it's changing, and I think it will take many, many more years where the attitude, the approach will change for the better, but currently they're long ways from there. And again, I recently went. Last time was just 2 years ago, and it's still very present, very present. So I think they have a long way. The only difference is now I have a private business that I can just go for what I can, but not everything you can get through private pay. A lot of things you still have to deal with the government. So I did use some connections. So as much as I'm against it, you cannot do without it in some cases. So is that on the question, or does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, because it talks about how Russia values like having control over their citizens, and how the government wants to be above everybody else.
Yeah.
So yeah, that does answer that.
And with government, especially with this, administration, and again, like I said, all retired people, because this is the old generation that still looks up to their president. He can increase their pension by I don't know, 20 cents in conversion, and and he will get all of their votes, because to them doesn't matter how much more they got more. He thinks of them. So and that's the power they hold, and there are people that are more and more of them, but you've heard about Navalny, so you see what happens to people that are actually outspoken, that stand up and say, this is not the way to treat people or to run a country. And that's not the first time, and you see, and of course it's all presented in different light, and I don't want to believe it, but I mean, I do things that I do think that it's all connected. So they don't like to. Shouldn't really be saying that. I still want to
go back. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still. It's still there, very different, but it's changing, and we all hope that it will. Russians just need to just let go and learn how not to use it, and the more people, change the path, the faster we'll change it. But for a lot of people, it's just easier. It's just easier, to do otherwise. And we also know, bureaucracy and mismanagement of funds and corruption. Corruption is what's dragging our country back. Corruption. There are funds, there are money that are given, and every time I go and I look at the buildings and I look at the roads, and I'm thinking, where did this money go? Because I know that it was there. It was, the funding was there. Where did it go? Where did it go? So many people went to prison for but that's what it's in Russian minds, and it's in Russian when they get to the power. And hey, it's present in this country too. It's everywhere. It's like part of the power drive, and they just get drunk on power, and then they do things. And it's present here, but not so open, where it's like, well, this funding is part of your paycheck, and somehow, again, those connections. Hey, I got the funding, but hey, I can help this region because they have this and that, and then they can help us with this and that. So why don't I give the funding where your roads are bad, the buildings are about to collapse? And so that is still there. And I'm thinking, when we have a good leader and good and change mentality and fight bureaucracy and bribery, and it can all be fixed.
Yeah.
So there is the bright future. Well, there you go.